Welcome back to Joe Dungan's Talk Show. Glad to see you, even though I can't. I'm assuming you're there. Otherwise, how could you hear my voice? You know how people talk about passive income streams? I have active non-income streams. That's what I do. This talk show, I like doing this. I hope to make money at it someday, but for now, I get it. You got to lay some track. Also, commercial acting. I had a busy week commercial auditioning. I've had several auditions. I still have to self-tape one more today. And Wednesday, I had to audition for one that required me to play golf. So I actually went to a golf course and played golf. I brought my selfie stick with a little tripod thing, and went out. And there were moments in between out there where I was kind of alone and I wasn't holding up play. There was no one behind me for a little bit, so I would do a few takes. I got plenty of footage of me hitting the ball poorly. There's not much of a market for that. Hopefully there will be someday because I've got a few shots of that now. But I was upfront about the fact that I played golf for a long time. I've just never played it well. They wanted me to audition anyway. So, give yourself a chance, folks. That's what I say. I bring all this up because my guest this week did not play golf. She is an Emmy Award-winning entertainment journalist. I believe this is my first Emmy Award winner. Heather Brooker. She works for NBC4 Los Angeles as a digital entertainment reporter. She does the red carpet events. She dishes about those. She does the press junkets. She is syndicated nationally, not syndicated, but you know what I mean, on the NBC platform nationwide. She is also an actor and comedian. She finds time for that. And she's also a wife and a mother. This is remarkable to me. Being a spouse, being a parent, being an artist, and having a career. Those are four things, and she does them all well. I know people who do none of those things well, and she does it all well, and she's not, stressed out. At least she doesn't look like it. I find it amazing. I don't know how she did it. I mean, I talked to her for 40 minutes, and I still don't know how she does it. I guess to her, it's just, hey, I'm Heather. I'm living my life, But she does it well, and it's admirable. And I talked to her about how she transitioned from one thing to another, and she just hustled. She kept doing it. So I think it's enlightening. Please enjoy this interview with Heather Brooker, my first Emmy Award-winning guest. Heather Brooker, coming at you now. Heather Brooker, thank you so much for joining Joe Dungan's Talk Show. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for coming. I mean, you're the busy one. You're the one who's interviewing all the, famous, important people. So
yeah.
Let's get right to it, because you do a lot of things. You are an actor and you are a broadcast journalist, and you were the groundbreaking multimedia entertainment reporter at NBC LA, the first ever. We'll get to that. But first things first, where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Oh, Tulsa, Oklahoma, sure. Yeah. And you started, you went the theater route and the acting route early on, correct?
I did. Yeah. I was definitely a theater kid, like a lot of people I think are when they come out to La La Land. I loved musical theater. I loved acting, and I had a scholarship actually to Oklahoma State University for theater. And but I also wanted to be an astronaut. I was very idealistic. So I was going to be the world's first like actress / astronaut. And then I realized, it sounds super, average, no big deal. And then I realized I was failing all of my science classes and all of my like astronomy classes. But I was doing well in acting. So I was like, what is something I can do to sort of marry this like creative side I have on myself, but also something that's like a stable, smart person's job, And so I went into broadcast journalism and never looked back. I absolutely loved getting to tell stories in that way and loved journalism. So that's sort of how that happened.
And were you doing that in Oklahoma right after you graduated?
Not right after I graduated. No, I went to a couple of small markets around the Midwest. I think I was in Missouri for a while. I was in Kansas, and then eventually made my way back to my hometown where I was a reporter there. And then I became an international correspondent. I traveled all over the world. I did like feature stories in Middle East, in Europe, Africa, almost every state in the United States. I did that for several years and was traveling so much. But I missed making people laugh. I missed sort of being the funny, quirky, silly girl who got to be in weird characters. And like, I missed that. And so I started doing improv in my hometown. So I would be like working in news by day, and then I would do improv shows at night. And then I started like auditioning for local commercials, and I started auditioning for local movies whenever, like at the time, nobody was filming in Oklahoma. Like it just, they didn't have the big tax break that they do now. So I started auditioning for local films, and I got cast in a couple of features. And I just realized, also cast as a lead in a few plays, Big Tulsa Productions. And I just sort of realized I missed performing in that way. It was a part of myself that I had sort of shelved for a while. And my husband and I didn't have any kids at the time, and we just had a dog and a cat. So we were like, you know what? Let's do the whole Grapes of Wrath move from Oklahoma all the way up to California. Let's follow our dreams. Let's see what comes of it. And have just really never regretted it. Like loved every minute of living out here.
I hope the trip out here wasn't as bad as in the movie.
It was pretty brutal. We were in a U-Haul with a dog and a cat.
Yeah, but still, I mean, it's not like your car broke down and you had chairs hanging off the side of the old pickup truck.
True.
Good. Now, along the way, you make this trip because this is, you had a stable career. You're making good money. You're seeing the whole world. It sounds like a dream for some people.
Sure.
Was there a part of you going, ooh, I'm going to walk away from that so I can do improv and stage shows?
I think whenever you make any sort of big transition in life or any sort of career change, which that's essentially what it was, you're going to have a little bit of doubt. You're going to have some hesitation, but everything worked out and aligned so perfectly for it to happen. Like I had 3 job offers before we even moved out here. My husband had a job waiting for him out here. We found a house within like 2 or 3 days of being here, a rental house, I should say. So everything just sort of aligned like it was meant to be. So yeah, it was a little scary and I was hesitant, but I wasn't leaving journalism behind. I was just going behind the scenes. So I became a writer and producer for local news stations in Los Angeles. And then I could do acting and auditions and improv and stuff like that in my free time.
Did you have those jobs lined up before you came out here?
I did. Yeah. So we came out like in August. And I had called a few of the news stations and said, hey, I have this experience. I don't want to report anymore. I'm looking for like a writer job or producer job or assignment desk, whatever it might be. Do you have any openings? So we came out here in August. My husband, Chris, had a job interview. I had a couple of job interviews. And then like a few weeks later, I was offered 3 jobs and he was offered the one. And so we moved out here in October. So it just happened pretty quickly.
Nice. So that's another example. If you follow your bliss and the universe kind of lines up and
Sure.
helps you. And I've heard story after story like that. What's surprising for me is how quickly it happened for you.
It happened really quickly. I was surprised as well. I mean, I also wasn't going into it asking for, I should say the jobs that I was offered, with the exception of one, were part-time and freelance jobs. In LA, there's always a need for freelancers. Every TV station in town is so desperate for freelance writers, freelance producers, photographers, because then they've got bodies to fill their needs, but they don't have to pay you benefits. They don't have to pay you. Yes.
Do they need freelance talk show hosts?
Maybe you should reach out. You never know.
Thank you.
You never know. But that's something I didn't realize, is the need for basically part-time freelance work, because it's not really like that in the Midwest. Like you get a job, it's a full-time job. You get benefits, you get 401k, all that stuff. But here it's different. So I got a couple of freelance jobs and then I got a full-time job, and I was literally working nonstop when I got here for probably about the first 6 months. One of the jobs I got was at TV Guide channel. Do you remember when TV Guide used to produce content on the top section? Like this is how old I am, but TV Guide, they run the date and times of all the show, the programming information. And then at the top, they were trying to produce like an E-style entertainment show with like red carpet coverage and set visits and things like that. And it never really quite took off.
You mean they don't anymore?
I don't know if they do, actually. If they do, I don't know anyone that's watching.
You said you're old enough to remember it. I'm old enough to remember the but you could buy the paper version.
The
on
actual paper
newsstand.
copy.
And
Yeah,
I
for
don't
sure.
remember when that stopped. And now I regret throwing them away because they might be worth $1 or something.
They could be worth at least $1, 25 cents maybe.
Oh.
But yeah, but TV Guide Channel for the longest time was doing programming, and I was a field producer for them. So I would go do red carpets and set visits and things like that. And I was not a fan. I did not like that job particularly. It was just not a good fit for me. And I also was like just a new actor, just chomping at the bit to like, oh my gosh, I want to be an actor. I want to be auditioning. I want an agent. I want to be on set. So I left that job, but I stayed in news as a writer, and did that for many, many, many years until I got this job that I have now.
And this job now is NBCLA's digital platform. You wanted to be an astronaut. Well, you were blazing a new trail. You were the first person ever to do that. How did this happen? Who says, let's try this? And when there's no blueprint for it, how do you know what to do?
Well, I have to give a shout out to one of my best friends who is back in Tulsa. She is the general manager of the NBC station there. And she and we talk all the time. We talk every day. And I had told her that I had built this platform, this Motherhood in Hollywood. I don't want to say platform, but I built this following and audience and a content creator kind of a thing. I had a podcast, a website, my social media was growing. And basically I was talking about movies and Hollywood, and I was talking about being a mom in Hollywood and auditioning and acting and, Disney stuff and all of this. And it just grew and grew and grew. And I told her, I said, I miss sort of that reporting, and I wish there was a way I could be like an entertainment reporter. And she's like, well, why don't you do that for us? Like, you can be like our Hollywood bureau for the Tulsa NBC station. And I was like, what a great idea. That'd be so fun. So for a few months, she hired me, and I covered the Golden Globes for the Tulsa station. I covered a lot of NBC related shows. While I was doing that, I was also a part-time writer for NBCLA. And my news director, somebody had told him, and I think my executive producer had told him what I was doing. Like, hey, you got to check out what our writer, Heather Brooker, is doing. She has this huge following on social media. She's also an entertainment reporter. Like, it's really great. So I sent him my reel, essentially, and was like, here's what I do. Here's what I've been doing. Let me know if you have a need. And he was like, this is great. He said, here's the thing. NBCLA doesn't generally, and hasn't for a long time at that point, covered entertainment. They are really focused on crime, on stories that they feel like are more, I don't want to say beneficial to the community than entertainment, but yeah, something that maybe serves the greater good rather than like, here's an interview with the latest celebrity. So that wasn't their focus at all. So the news director, though, was looking for a way to sort of dip their toe back in the water of entertainment and get an entertainment presence, and was trying to think of a way that we could do that. And his idea was, well, I've got this seasoned reporter who also already has a social following on digital platforms. Why don't we create a position for her where she can be herself and tell entertainment stories to our audience, and then those can also be sort of shared across our broadcast platforms. And now I also report for our national digital platforms as well. So it's sort of grown since then. And that's kind of how it happened, just by me doing something that I love to do and utilizing a skill that I had sort of forgotten that I had. I feel like as actors, sometimes comedians, we get such tunnel vision of like, no, this is what I do. I know about headshots and agents and casting director workshops, and this is what I do for an audition. This is what I do for self-tape. And we get such tunnel vision that we forget to stop and think about, what are the other skills that I have? What are the other things that I'm passionate about? And that's sort of how this all happened. And also just people believing in me and giving me a chance. I'm an older white lady who looks like a Karen, as the kids would say, and it's not a typical fit for an entertainment reporter. Like out here in LA, everyone is like super gorgeous and Botox and wearing like disco ball shirts and like just being like so fabulous, and I'm out here like, oh my god, look, oh, this is so fun, just like a big dork.
But I think that's probably why people like you, is because you're relatable.
I hope so.
I call it the Oprah effect. Remember when Oprah Winfrey came on, she knocked Phil Donahue off the air because she was real. Phil
Sure.
Donahue was great, but you didn't know anything about him. He was just there to interview Vladimir Posner and all these other heads of state and whatever. And then she comes along saying, I can't lose weight. I can't get a date on a Saturday night. I don't understand this. My family hates me, blah, blah, blah. And women across America went, us too. So I
Right.
think you're a fan who made it. I think that's probably why it's working out.
Yeah, I mean, I love movies and television. There's a reason why my whole website and podcast and everything sort of that's a big part of it. But I also love storytelling. I love hearing other people's story, which is, I assume, why you do your show as well. You love to hear about other people and how they got from A to B. That was sort of the genesis of Motherhood in Hollywood. Is I wanted to know, how did you become the successful writer? How did you become the successful producer and also still juggle your family life? Like, being a parent in this business isn't easy because it's freelance, as we talked about. It's freelance by nature, and you never know from day to day where your next job is going to come from. If you have to get a sitter on a last minute's notice, and if you're gone for days or weeks at a time on set, what impact that has on your child. So, like, there's a lot of questions I had as a young mom and an actor that I was sort of wanting to glean from other people and their experiences. So that's kind of what Motherhood in Hollywood was initially, is my way of being a sponge and soaking up all of this experience and knowledge from other people.
Now,
it was really very selfish reasons.
No, everything we do is selfish. Now the Motherhood in Hollywood content. This is why it's a little bit. It seems like you did a bunch of things at once, which is why I'm trying to figure out this kind of no sequence, because you did that at once, you did that at the same time as that. You started the Motherhood in Hollywood content during your years as a reporter and writer, correct?
I was just a writer at the time. So I started Motherhood in Hollywood when my daughter was about 2 years old. And I really, like I said, just wanted to meet other moms in the industry, other parents in the industry, and connect with them and find some kind of community. Because it can be very isolating as a parent when you don't have an office to go to every day and swap stories about, diapering and naps and all of this stuff. And while I did that, I was a part-time writer for NBCLA. And then about a year or two after I started Motherhood in Hollywood and it was growing, that's when I started working for my friend in the NBC station in Tulsa. And I was only did that for a short time. I still do every once in a while contribute to them when they need like a big story or something. But I was only there for a few months, and then word kind of spread, and I was telling people at work, like, oh, this is what I'm doing. That, they were like, oh, that's great. And I was sharing about it on social. And the great thing about social is that people see everything you're doing and it gives them ideas. But then the other thing is people see everything you're doing, so you have to really be careful with what you're sharing. So it sort of started with the podcast and then website and then social media. Then I became a reporter for NBC in Tulsa. Then I became a reporter for NBC in LA.
And then NBC in LA, you said that's now national, correct?
Yeah. So I do mostly still reporting for NBC in Los Angeles, and it goes, my stories go on broadcast as well as the digital platforms. And then a couple of years ago, they were like, we have a need for more entertainment. We want your entertainment coverage to go to all of our stations. So now all of my stuff goes digitally on all the network platforms as well. So it's a pretty big reach. I mean, we're talking millions and millions of people.
That was my question when you started at Tulsa. Was there a side of you going, I could self-syndicate this to stations around the country? Was that thought?
I wish I'd had that much forethought. I didn't. I was just excited to have something to do other than, just the day-to-day, because at that point I had done my podcast for a couple of years, and I was just excited to have something more to do besides my podcast and my website. And I was like, oh, I was a reporter for years and years. I still have this skill. I can do this. And so I was just excited to start kind of reporting again. And I didn't really think anything more long-term until someone at my station mentioned, like, oh, you should tell the news director what you do. They might be interested. And I was like, okay, great. Never even crossed my mind.
But it's cool that you cracked in there, because you told at the beginning of the story, you said, yeah, we're kind of shying away from entertainment. We want hard news about crime and more crime and then more crime. And then we close
more crime.
But now they dip their toe in this digital way, and now it's on television. Do you think what you've done helped pave the way for other, I want to say, styles of reporting or styles of of storytelling, because it seemed like it was just journalist, hard news, read the
Sure.
teleprompter. And now I see what little I've watched Channel 4 News here and there, and they have more of these interviews with people in their homes, like the kind of thing you would do when you're interviewing a star of a show or something. And it seems like it's changed the way they do their news. Do you think you help them change the way they present their news, or was that organically happening anyway?
I would not even begin to take any credit for any of that. I think the news director and the producers, the executive producers, have such a vision for their programming there that they've always sort of had a plan to do that. And they have even more plans to, continue and grow in other areas. I think, to be honest, what's been really interesting and is how many people in LA don't have somebody who does what I do. There's no other station in town who has just a dedicated entertainment reporter that's a multimedia journalist. I think KTLA is kind of doing a digital newscast where they have like some of their old interns who are now talking about, they're like Gen Z millennial types who are talking about news of the day kind of stuff, but they only do it on digital platforms. And I just had a conversation with my boss the other day about this, and he's like, you're our unicorn. He's like, you're the only person in the market who does this. And he's like, and it's very unique and we're very proud of that. So, and of course that makes me feel really good. And I love that. But I also know that there's still more I want to do as Heather. Like, I certainly don't feel like this is it. I've made it, this is the last stop for me. So that's the struggle I have. And I think a lot of actors and people in our industry have, is you kind of are going like, okay, what's next? What's next? What can I do next?
Well, I mean, look at Jerry Seinfeld. Look at Jerry Seinfeld, biggest sitcom ever. And what does he do? Just go play golf? No, he starts another show, which is not nearly as successful, but how do you top, $1 billion show? I mean,
right. Are you talking about comedians in cars?
Yeah.
Getting coffee. I love that show so much.
But it's not, a mega success.
Well, to be fair, it's on a streaming platform, and, there's so many options for what people can watch now. There may be a lot of people that don't know it exists. True. When Jerry Seinfeld hit, it was the perfect storm of, there were still 3 major networks, 4 if you count Fox. There were still the major networks, and that's what everybody watched. Like, it was appointment television. You sat down and you watched must-see TV with Friends and Seinfeld and, whatever else was on. So, but that doesn't exist anymore. Even the Super Bowl doesn't get numbers it used to get. Nobody is sitting down to watch just one thing anymore.
So you said something, I was listening to one of your podcasts earlier, and you said this interesting quote, which I wrote down right away. Once I get my picture on the red carpet, I want to leave. And you're talking about
such a jerk.
No, hey, you're there. There's obviously a reason. There must be something unpleasant about it. I'm just wondering,
sure,
as an entertainment reporter, you are on the red carpet sometimes interviewing celebs. And I'm just wondering, what is it about interviewing people on the red carpet that makes you go, oh, I'm ready to go home?
Well, I should clarify that statement a little more. I should expand on it, I should say. When I first started, it was like, oh, I love this so great. I'm happy to be here. I've done now like hundreds of red carpets, and so it gets a little old. What a lot of people don't realize is, one, as a multimedia journalist, I do everything on my own. Like, I take my own camera. Sometimes I'll hire a camera person and bring a camera person with me, or the station will send someone with me. But 9 times out of 10, I'm there on my own as sort of a one-man band doing everything. So I'm holding the mic, I'm holding the camera. You're given on the red carpet a basically 1 foot by 1 foot square space to stand in. You're butted up shoulder to shoulder with every other press outlet that's there. You stand there for hours. You have to show up a couple of hours in advance to get your spot, get signed in, whatever. And then they just want you to be there standing around. And then when the celebrities come in, unless you're one of the major outlets, Entertainment, Access Hollywood, Entertainment Tonight, unless you're one of those major outlets, you're farther down on the red carpet. And the celebrities always show up late. They always spend too much time at the top of the carpet. And then they blow right past you, and you don't get your interview. You don't get your soundbite for the 11 o'clock news, and you've just wasted your whole evening, So that's the part that I don't like. It feels like such a disregard for our time. And, some of the other reporters from the other stations and I will talk about it. And my friend from KTLA has this theory. He's like, they don't care if we're here or not. We're basically just here for show, to make it look like, oh, look at all these press outlets that came. We have hundreds of people from the press all around the world. They don't care if you get your soundbite. They don't, because if they did, they would make sure that everybody got a soundbite. Then you add on top of that the publicist, and this is where, I'll probably get in trouble in some way, but I don't really care. The publicist who are walking down the carpet with the celebrities.
They're the ones grabbing the arms saying, let's go.
Yes.
So that way the
Yes.
celebrity's not the bad guy. The publicist is the bad
Sure.
cop. Get going.
Absolutely. And trust me, they are. They will cut you off in the middle of a question. If you're saying hello, if you're saying thanks so much, they will cut you off and push their. I have had a publicist grab my microphone and shove it down. I've had publicists come up to me and go, you get one question. If you try to ask two, I will pull her away. Like they're very controlling. And it's not a super pleasant experience to be there, to be treated like you're only there to service the celebrities. Like that's all they care about, to make their client and their celebrities look good. And it's
and of course, if they're a publicist, they're going to go after the bigger outlets in the first place.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Because why would they stop and talk to NBC Los Angeles when they can spend 10 minutes with Access Hollywood or Entertainment Tonight? Because they know Entertainment Tonight, they're staples. Now, granted, nobody's watching Entertainment Tonight and nobody's watching Access Hollywood like they were 10 years ago. But the publicists don't know that. It's all about the image. Oh, we got him on Access. Oh, we got a soundbite on this. And I'm like, I'm telling you can't explain to them in the moment, like the 10 million people that look at my story online is way more than the people who are going to be watching those national press outlets. Like, and also there's longevity, there's shareability of it. When you have a 20-second clip on a red carpet from a movie that airs in an entertainment show, it's gone. It's gone. But when I do a story on digital platforms, it lives forever. People can go back to it. They can share it. They can, post on a TikTok, repost, whatever. So there's this sort of mindset that broadcast is king, which is true. It always has been. But it really isn't. And that's what's frustrating to me, is it's like, it really isn't. And some publicists get it and they're like, oh, this is good. Like we want this type of coverage. But as a reporter who is not with a major entertainment focused outlet, I should say, because NBC is a major outlet, but a major entertainment focused outlet, it can be very degrading when you're standing on a red carpet and have the stars blow past you, or have a publicist yell at you, or have somebody say you get one question, like it's just, and it's also just feels like a waste of time. So that's why I said I like to go and get my picture, because the rest of the night I'm just standing around hoping that somebody stops and talks, and you're yelling for them, and it just feels so gross.
Yeah, it sounds unpleasant. Now, in the years you've been doing this, has there been a slow change in the mentality among publicists saying, you know what, we really shouldn't dismiss digital that much? There's a lot of people who watch this stuff in the days and weeks that follow.
No,
really,
they don't get it. Like I will say, if you're talking about Variety or Hollywood Reporter, those are outlets that, whether it's digital or not, they will definitely stop for, because Variety has done, and Hollywood Reporter and those outlets have done something really smart where they started pivoting to digital. Where, remember, Variety just used to be a magazine and Hollywood Reporter was just a magazine. Now they have all this digital coverage, and they have red carpet reporters. Their editors are out on the red carpet like they're red carpet reporters. And that publicists see the value in, because they know they're going to be in Variety, which has some name to it. But again, it's the outlet, it's the stigma of broadcast versus digital. Almost all the digital outlets are down on the very end of the carpet, which is, I think, just such a huge mistake. And I will never understand that. That's my one big frustration. And then you got me, people don't know what to do with me because I'm this hybrid. Like I'm offering broadcasts. You're not going to get as much broadcast coverage because it's broadcast and they only give you like 45 seconds for entertainment, you know? And then you got digital and national digital. So I'm this hybrid. They don't know what bucket to put me in. So it can get really frustrated. And I feel like I'm constantly like pitching our outlet and pitching myself to be like, no, this is valuable. It could be valuable to you.
Someone is going to figure this out one day. And
one
then
day.
You're going to be, and you're going to be at the forefront.
I'll be retired. Or I'll be retired and be like, I don't care anymore.
Or you will be walking the red carpet going, I used to do that.
There you go. And that's something I think about. Yeah, that's something I think about all the time. I'm like, I cannot wait to one day actually be in a movie because I'm like, I will stop and talk to every single person that's there, give them whatever they need. I'll show up an hour early if I need to, because I know what it's like to stand there. Like we were there for Mary Poppins at Disney a couple of years ago. We had to get there like 2.5 hours, 3 hours early for this carpet because it was Disney. It was such a big deal. They had everything tented. Like it was this massive deal, whatever. We had to get there and we didn't get Mary Poppins. We didn't even get Lin-Manuel Miranda, like none of the main stars. And we were there for hours. And that was the entire back half of the carpet. And everyone was like, what are we going to do? We can't cover your movie now. And what they do is they'll say, oh, we'll send you the generic interviews, because at the top of the carpet, they'll get generic interviews. Then that they'll go, oh, we'll just send them out to all the press outlet. So it's like, again, it goes back to what my friend from KTLA was saying, like, oh, we've got all this press here, but we're not going to actually let them interview the stars. We're going to send them these generic interviews. It's really messed up.
It seems to me you could just show up at the end of the movie, get a live shot of you standing behind with the stuff in the background, and then they could have the insert of the interview from someone else. So
sure, yeah.
I don't know why they make you go to that much trouble. Now, part of your job also is the press junkets, where they I remember, what was it? Notting Hill, I think was the movie where Julia Roberts played a movie star and she's at a press junket. They rent an entire floor of a hotel. All the reporters are in this suite having the buffet, and they go one by one into this other suite where this movie star is answering the same questions over and over and over again. Yes. And when you and I talked earlier, you said that the reporters in these press junkets are very boxed in as far as the questions they're allowed to ask. Now, why is that? Is it because the people running the movie want the same information out in all these outlets over and over again?
Yes, they very much have a control. It's all about control. They want to control the narrative that's going out about their film. And in today's age of social media, that's really difficult to do. So we are constantly told, please only ask questions about the films, no personal questions. Sometimes it's even like no personal questions about XYZ, only ask about the film. The other problem you have is you're given a really strict time limit. You're given 4 minutes. The standard amount of time is 4 minutes for the average press outlet. Sometimes bigger outlets get 8 or more, but most of us get 4 minutes with this person. So I'll talk about in person versus the online. In person, you go in, you have the buffet, which is amazing, always amazing. You chat it up with your fellow press outlet folks, and then they call you in. You're on deck. You're waiting to go into this fabulous hotel room, and from the minute you walk in, they start the timer. So you got to get in, sit down. There's no like lubing up. There's no like, hi, how are you? So great to see you. No, there's none of that, because if you don't get right in,
is it a shared camera, shared lighting, and everything?
Yeah. So you've got two chairs set up, 2 directors' chairs set up, 1 camera on you, 1 camera on your interviewee. And then sometimes there's a 2-shot, which is always great. But you go in, timer starts, you got to sit down, jump right in. There's no like, hi, how are you? Nothing, none of that. And you've got to get something that is interesting, explains the film a little bit. Like you can't just talk about random stuff. Because they also say no games. That's a big thing that's been happening lately. Like you'll notice outlets like BuzzFeed. Who are some of the other outlets? I think even Variety and Hollywood, like some of the online outlets will do these games that they play. So like, if you could be any character from the Marvel universe other than your own, who would you be? And then you hear their answers. And like, those are the ones that go viral and people think it's so funny. Certain outlets are not allowed to do that. Like we're told you can't do that. only you have to have all of that stuff pre-approved. So if I want to go in and do something fun with like Patton Oswalt, I have to get that pre-approved by the publicist and his PR team to do that. I feel like Patton would be up for that. He's a very cool guy, but most people would be like, I don't want to do that. So they're very strict because they want to make sure that you're promoting their movie. Like, we're not there to tell a good story, to be a part of the product. We're there to promote their movie. I mean, that's essentially what entertainment reporting is.
You're an extension of the publicity arm of
Yeah.
the studio or the movie star. Now, how does the movie star feel about answering the same questions over and over again? I can't imagine they would get a little bit irritated by 3 p.m.
Well, I don't know if they get irritated. I think it's probably exhausting. I think they know that's part of their job, like part of the job of an actor when you get a big budget, when you get a big film or TV show, is the promotional aspect of it. They usually agree in advance to a certain number of hours of promotion for that project. And they know, I don't know if they're told the strict, how strict or tightly wound the press is told to keep the questions. I don't know if they're ever told that. But I think they do get a little like exhausted with being asked the same question again. I can tell when I've asked something that's been asked a million times, it's because they'll always go, that's a really great question. And then I'm like, oh, like to me, that's when I'm like, oh crap. Or they'll go, yeah, no, I love that. Or you can tell that they're trying to think of a different way. I mean, you can only say something the same way like so many times, and they're actors, they probably want to try to switch it up, give a little different take. But the constraints that are put on the press when they go into the room, I don't know if the actors are aware of that, or if maybe they just think, wow, that was a boring interview, and the thing is, nobody in the press wants to piss off the publicist, because then you're not going to get invited back. You're going to lose access to any project that publicist is working on, or if it's a personal publicist, you're going to lose access to their entire client roster. It's why nobody will ever say anything bad about Disney, because Disney will cut you out. They'll be like, and you're no longer invited to the junkets, the screenings, or the red carpets. And that's a huge chunk of the movie market right now.
Now, just like with the red carpet events, it sounds like there's a certain level of inefficiency going on here. If they're asking the same questions over and over again. And you did mention on some red carpet events, if you can't get an interview, they will just take the feed of an earlier interview and just send it out to all the markets.
Yeah.
Does that happen with the junkets as well?
Yes.
We don't have time to have 500 reporters coming here asking the same questions. Look, let's just get these people asking these questions. We'll just send it out to any market who wants it. So that happens also?
Well, what they do is they'll do generic junket interviews. So they'll have somebody from the studio team or production team go in and ask them just basic generic questions about the movie, about their character, about the story, and all that stuff. And they're usually, 5 to 8 minutes. They go in and they edit it down, and then they put those up on their press sites so that people who are not in LA or wherever they have the junkets can use those as if they were there. To edit their story, because there's not just entertainment reporters in LA, there's literally entertainment reporters in all over the world who can pull from those generic interviews and still do a story about the movie.
That makes sense. Sense. Now, but let's go for a wrap here. You were talking about what's next, because as successful as you've been with all these things, there is a certain restlessness. And I know this is kind of between being a wife and a mother and an entertainment reporter. There isn't a whole lot of time for acting and comedy. Are you trying to carve out more time for that? I mean, how are you navigating the next chapter of Heather Brooker?
I love that question. That's such a great question. No, I love that callback. No, I love that question because honestly, yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to do. There's a reason why I left news all those years ago when I did. It's because I have this desire, and I think a lot of comedians and performers have this desire to entertain in some way. And while, yes, my job does fulfill that to a certain extent, it's still news. I still work for NBC, so I can't really, go all out and be too wild and, whatever. There's still a certain level of decorum. Not that I'm like Girls Gone Wild or whatever, but like there's still a certain level of professionalism that I have to maintain. And I miss performing, and I dabbled in stand up years ago, and I've missed it for a very long time. And now I'm sort of finding that voice again and finding that side of myself. As I think a lot of people are, especially after this last year and a half, a lot of creative types are like, where do I go? What do I do to get this out? I've been in my house, I've been with my family and my friends, or maybe not friends, but I've been with my family. How do I get this out? So I've been doing stand up now for several months. I have been loving it. And I'm just really trying to reconnect with that more creative and silly side of myself, and not the so much professional news Heather. I want to reconnect with that like funny, silly person. And that's hard. It's hard right now because there isn't improv happening. There's not improv classes happening. The main challenge in Hollywood, and I'm sure you've experienced this too, is that there's so many things that you want to do. Like, you want to be an actor. I want to be a writer. I would love to create my own show. I would love to be a producer. I would love to do stand up, more professionally. There's so many different things that you want to go, oh, I want to do this. And narrowing it down and finding the time to get really good at something is hard, especially for me, because there's so many things I want to do.
Yeah.
So I'm struggling right now with, and then it's been challenging to try to narrow my focus a little bit more. I love my job. I know I've got I feel really lucky. I have some security there and some safety there. My boss has been just so encouraging. So I feel like I'm like, okay, I'm going to spread my wings a little bit more now and see where that takes me.
Well, it sounds like that's how you've done it your whole life. And
Yeah.
so it seems like this is the right way to do it.
Yeah.
Brooker, tell everybody where they can find you, social media outlets and websites and so forth.
I would absolutely love it if everyone would follow me over on Instagram and Facebook at the Heather Brooker. You can also find me on the TikTok at Heather Brooker, and feel free to check out my podcast and website at motherhoodandhollywood.com. That's where all my podcast episodes are, but they're also available wherever you get your podcasts.
We will put all of that in the show notes. Thank you so much. This has been very enlightening. This is
great.
Well, this world that we see on TV all the time, but we don't know about. And you're showing us the dirty underside of it. And it seems kind of filthy.
I hope it wasn't too disparaging. I'm going to get some emails from publicists who are like, you're out, lady. No more.
No, you know what, publicists? I will take that bullet because I got nothing to lose here. I will get right in front of them and say, look, publicists, how about you get it together? How about you embrace the digital side? Because this is where it's going.
This is where it's going.
Technology never goes backwards.
Never. You had very great questions, Joe. So thank you so much.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And I guess that's it. How about that? Wasn't that terrific? And she's a nice person too. It's nice when the nice people get all the wins. So good for her. You keep going, girl. You go, girl, as the kids say. I'm still going. That's, metaphorically. I'm not physically going many places, but I'm doing what I can. I think you just have to have faith in what you're doing. Don't marry yourself to outcomes. Control what you can control, and leave the rest up to the wind and the weather. It'll happen. It'll be fine. Anybody need a bad golfer for anything?